Hey everybody, Andy here, helping you build a career you love. Great to have ya. Got a special one today on what's going on in the market. It's a little economics lesson. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So get in, if you're here with me live, say hi, get in the chat. I already see some of my faves, and look who is first online, my mother. So be nice to her firstborn. Only good comments, please. Stefan, Adam, Cecilia, Donna, Jeff, my baby girl, and everybody else who is here. Great to have you. And if you're watching on the recording, welcome to you too. While you're here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and please click the thumbs up button if you like my content and share it, because there's a lot of people that need help. And I'm going to cap off today's talk with a little lesson on help. But what's today about? I want to talk with you about what's going on in the market. We've got wages that are going up through the roof, right? We've got price increases. There's inflation. We've got, for every one, or I should say, 2 job openings, at least in the US, there's 1 unemployed person, so it's way out of whack. Inflation hasn't been this high since 1982, and we know that was a long time ago because that's the year I got my driver's license. So we're talking a long time. So how did we get here? I want to talk about how we got here. I want to talk about what it means to you right now and what I would do and what I think is going to happen over the next 12 months. I'm going to give you 5 tips, and really these are reminders and some free giveaways and assets of where you can put these tips into place, or to put these tips into play. And when I talk about a history of how we got here, this isn't just going to be a history lesson, because what I really want to do with this is try to give you my eyes, how I look at the market, how I look at history, how I predict trends, because I think the lesson inside going through the history and the evolution of how we got here is going to be really valuable for you to be able to kind of project for yourself and the track that you're on, or the path or career path or jobs or companies you want to work for, or paths you want to take. Okay, so before I get into the macro lesson, I want to talk a little bit about a kind of a mini history lesson. And I know I have a lot of new people to my community, but some of you might not know, this is the 3rd year in a row, right around this time, where I'm doing a predictions type of talk. And in March, on March 19th of 2020, when I finally realized what was going to happen in the market, that COVID was here, the pandemic was upon us, it was becoming much more prevalent in my country, in the United States. I know it had been in other countries and kind of, you know, spreading its way around the world. And once I truly had an appreciation of what was about to transpire and what we were in for, I came to YouTube and I talked with you about industries I thought would thrive, industries I thought would take a hit, what I wanted you to do tactically, how to best position yourself to make sure that you're surviving this effectively. And I can say I was pretty dang spot on, and you don't have to take my word for it because it's out there for you to watch it. And then a year later, April 15th, 2021, I came back and I wanted to do another prediction show because things were changing, right? The vaccinations were in place. We were starting to get them more in mass. More people were getting vaccinated, and I thought it was important to talk about what was going to occur over the summer. I predicted the surge. I predicted the pullback in August. I predicted the surge again in September. We were in for a rockin' time. All that's come true as well. Now, here we are. We've got different market conditions, as I mentioned, right? Wages are way, way up. Inflation is way up, right? Unemployment is, we call it full employment at the number it is. I know it doesn't sound full to some of you, but I'll explain, you know, that economic principle here in a few moments. So what happened? So you know what? I had a whole bunch of note cards and I threw them out because I thought, you know what, it might be better to give you kind of some slides next to my head. Okay, so what's the situation report? What do we got? And let's talk a little history here as I take a sip out of my Live Off Sours cup. Who doesn't love this? Andyisms on mugs, people. Make sure you grab them. Okay. So what's happening right now? We've got prices and wages have been flat for a very long time. Okay? It's kind of milling along. And I mean a really long time. And I'm going to show you a graph here in a second. But this is basically where we are. Unemployment in the last couple of decades has been really, really good, meaning really, really low, with the exception of the Great Recession, for those of us that lived through it, right, in 2008, when the market really cratered and we went into a deep, deep recession. But other than that, it's been pretty good. And then the market's been strong. Companies were doing well, right? Everything was humming along and things were pretty good. Sorry. All right, so what do I mean by the market being flat? All I want to talk about on this graph right now, this is a graph of unemployment and wages. I want you to look at the blue line, okay? So the blue line is your wage growth. So you could look, so from 1983 down here, over here on the left, where I say wages are generally flat forever, they've been really, really flat for a really, really long time. And you probably noticed this, right? You're earning about what you were earning, and while you might be getting some pay increases over the years, if you've evolved in a straight line career, that is, and you've kind of hung in with your employer, or at least that career path, your wages have probably gone up ever so slightly, but the buying power really hasn't gone up. It's been pretty flat. Okay, so I just want you to notice that here, because that's an important principle. We'll come back. We'll come back to this in a second, and you could see just on this graph, you know, April 2020 up here in the upper right-hand corner, you can see how the unemployment rate was really high. But generally speaking, the unemployment rate over, now we're looking at a 50-year span here, right? It's been about 6%. And one of the things for you to know is anything below 4%, let's just say 3 for all intents and purposes, basically economists, financial assessors feel that the 3% line is like zero unemployment. There's really no such thing as zero unemployment. There never will be, but it takes about 3% to get people in and out of their jobs each month. And so the 3% number, we generally consider the world is employed, or at least our nation is employed. Okay, so I want you to just take some note here. All right, so then what happens? So the pandemic hits and a lot of people get out of work, right? You got a lot less income, especially if you lost your job. But not everybody got hit, right? And so that I don't have to say this every single time I make a point, yes, I know that not everybody zigs at the same time, right? Some people zig, some people zag. Some industries zig, some industries zag. Some countries zig, some countries zag, right? Some are going up, some are going down. Basically, though, organizations, okay, nay, the hospitality and leisure and travel and some of these others and restaurants and those, most organizations were very strong. They were just a little bit disoriented. Okay, they hadn't operated in a remote capacity, and so they had to figure out. And some companies, it took them a day. Some companies, it took them a week. Some companies, it took them a month, 2 months to figure out how to get the workers at home, situated, working effectively. Right, we're all on Zoom sessions all day long. You get where I'm going with this, right? But we didn't really take a smash as far as most industries were concerned. All right, but so what does that mean from a personal perspective? Well, people can't spend as much as they would like to spend, right? Because number one, there are things that we just couldn't do, like go to a restaurant, right? Go to the movies. We just weren't doing things like that. We weren't taking vacations. We weren't spending in that capacity. We also weren't spending in some other capacities, right? I wasn't buying gasoline to get in my car to go to a drive to work, to park in a parking lot. Right, so this is going on, and then there's a lot of people who weren't working at the time. So what does the U.S. government do? And I'm talking mostly about the trends in the U.S., but this is pretty common across the world. Our government, out of the goodness of their heart, pumps in $7 trillion. And I got news for you, folks. I know they did this out of the goodness of their heart, but there is absolutely nothing free in this world. It might be free at the moment, but you're going to have to pay it back at some point, whether you pay it back or somebody else pays it back, but you won't get anything for free. But there's a massive infusion of capital. You can't just shove $7 trillion into the economy. Wow, simultaneously, the years that this is going on, in 2020, The S&P, so 500 right companies, the indices, the index is growing 18% in 2020 and about 27% in 2021. And what that means is for every dollar in my stock portfolio, now it's worth $1.50. So you're infusing money into the market, and a lot of people are not spending, and their stock portfolios are going up and up and up. But there's some other contributors that really got us to where we are. The white collars generally were spending, albeit maybe on Amazon and doing some other things. But now the paycheck to paycheck type of people, even their dollar got stronger because they had a little cash. They were also spending less, and even though they might have been out of work, people were tapping into their savings, they were tapping into the government subsidies. Even people that were working were getting government subsidies. Okay, and now you combine this with low interest rates. So what does that actually mean to most people? Well, when the interest rates are super low, debt is really cheap. So I don't know about you, but I'm clipping right along, right? Spending every day with you guys. Well, I refinanced my mortgage. I got a 2% mortgage on my house, right? So the debt is cheap, and the debt that's cheap is hitting what is the largest, right? Largest, generally, expense for most people, most families. All right, so now follow me. Money's being pumped in, right? People are still earning. My stocks are going up, my portfolio's going up. I'm refinancing my debt, which is now going down, or making it easier for me, or cutting my mortgage term in half, or whatever. Psychologically, I'm feeling pretty good, right? I'm a fat cat right now. This is actually happening for most people, right? There are a lot of people that were out of work, but the majority of people were following this scenario. And then what? Even people that were living paycheck to paycheck or were carrying high credit card debt, they started to take the money that they were getting. This is statistical. I'm not making this stuff up, right? They were taking the money they were getting and they were paying down their highest percentage debt because they could get rid of it. Okay, so all of this is happening. So then what happens? So people get back to work, right? But the employers, most of them were going pretty strong. They were trying to grow, right? They're trying to find qualified people, except there's not enough people, and there's not enough people for so many reasons, right? That I'm going to show you here in a second. And then additionally, wages start to rise, right? This is a natural reaction, cause and effect. So wages start to rise because I have to pay people who I might not otherwise pay, or I have to pay somebody who I would love to pay, except I got to pay them more to get them, steal them, or whatever. All right, so now I want you to look at this. I showed you the JOLTS report. I look at this every month. I showed you the JOLTS report last spring, and I was showing you into the summer, I showed it again, how like in June, July, right, it was like 10 million, 11 million open jobs, and I said, this is crazy. This is why we're gonna have high wages. You're in for a boom, grab it while it's good. Well, this is actually a kind of a makeshift report here. I pulled some of this from JP Morgan, and I pulled some of this from Google, but basically, if you look at this graph right here and you see this huge spike in the middle, what this report is telling you is the Labor Bureau Statistics in the U.S. puts out stats every month about publicized job openings. Now, you know, Coach tells you, right, that's not all the jobs that are open, but let's go with the data we have because for illustrative purposes, it works to prove the point. There's 11.2 million openings known right now. Okay, that actually I wrote this in red ink and then I looked back at the number and basically I was still going off a non-fully confirmed number, but basically it's 11.2 million openings. There's 6.3 million people unemployed. That's almost a 2-for-1 ratio. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, Andy, that's great, but I still can't find a job. Well, just because there's a job opening doesn't mean you're qualified for it. Just because there's a job opening doesn't mean you want it, right? Kind of thing. But for illustrative purposes of why we're in the predicament we're in right now, or why things are rolling for you, this is one of those things. And you can see this huge, huge uptick right here, right? This is, by the way, this has been going on. This is 2021 and up to now. This report is as of February 28th, which was the latest data that I could get. Okay, now I want to show you this unemployment and wages graph again. Look at what's happened in this section over here. I already told you that unemployment's pretty low, but look at this blue spike here over on the right, kind of in the middle of the graph. I hope you can see my cursor moving around here, but look at how precipitously wages have risen. They had to do this as a reaction to the shortage, right? Demand against supply, you guys get that. I have demand for employees. I don't have enough employees. Why don't I have enough employees? Well, there's a couple reasons for this. All of these are contributing. Well, number one, there's pent-up demand. What does this have to do with employment? Well, think about it. Didn't I tell you last year what industries were going to rise and why? Clothing, apparel, a lot of people racing back, right? Revenge shopping, I think I called it. Except there's a lot of goods and other things. So now, how many of you would sit in a restaurant and wonder why the service was so bad? Right? Because they were understaffed. How many of you wanted the sleeveless wetsuit from Roca last summer, except they couldn't get it in and they still don't have it in because they have supply issues, right? So there's a lot of pent-up demand. You've got low inventory. So what happens? So now you got price increases, right? This leads to price inflation. Now, if you're a retailer, and this is an important point, if you're a retailer and your inventory's low, what do? Andy doesn't have enough time to have all those coaching sessions with all the people that want to have them. He's only got so many hours in a day. What do? You raise your rates. Right, that's fine if you're a service. But what if you are actually a retailer of things? Well, if you're a retailer of things, while you can raise your prices, your revenue isn't necessarily going up because you don't have enough widgets to sell. And the worst part of this is the supply costs, the raw material, all of those prices are going up, so it's cutting into your profit. What do? You let employees go, right? So this is what happens. So we're on the tip of this right now. All right, so wages go up because there's not enough employees. How many times do you see Andy bragging on his job search boot campers getting double pay and triple pay and 80% increases, right? Show of hands, you follow me, right? Yes, they're good people, but they're also in demand and they're having the perfect storm because I'm giving them all the interviewing and negotiating techniques that they need. But you get where I'm going with this, right? So you got a huge increase in wages that is exacerbated by the fact that we just had the largest population boomed in, like birth booms, right? The baby boomers from 1946 to 1964, those people that were born in that period, in that 18-year period or so, are now naturally retiring, higher than they normally would, right? And then you have the pandemic, which did what? Which caused a lot of people in their 60s, some people in their 50s, to hit retirement earlier. They were bought out or whatever. Now, some of them are out living the good life, maybe, maybe not, or maybe working at a partial capacity, right? So all of this is converging at the same time. So what does that mean? Well, when you look at this wage increase, what's going to happen as a result of this wage increase? You got wage increases and price increases. Look at the last two times we were in a situation like this. Now, I will tell you, so if you're looking at the left side of the graph, this is the 70s, and look at that precipitous uptick. Slope looks pretty damn similar to the inflationary prices, which are in lockstep with the wage increases, okay? And what happened both times? Major meltdowns in recessions, right? It has to happen that way. You can't go up this fast without going down this fast, because not only it's a universal law, but governments are going to be doing things to expedite the decrease to try to cool the economy off. Now, I won't tell you that history repeats itself because it never does, but it sure does rhyme. Right? There is always a mutation that occurs for why each of these big bumps occurred, right? The reason this is coming up on the right side of the graph so quickly has to do with different factors than the reason this went up so quickly. Okay, so when you converge pent-up demand, price inflation, with an inability to support the demand because you don't have enough supply and you don't have enough workers to do whatever it is that you need to do, this is going to happen, right? They're going to overpay. You're going to overpay for what's available, and you're going to overpay the people to get them in to help you. Okay, so this is important. So here we are now. We're all the way on the right side of this graph, and we're all the way at the top. What I think's the top. I actually think this sucker's coming down, and it's going to come down in a hurry. Okay, so now what are other signs you should be looking at? Well, what I also look at is I look at consumer spending. In January, everybody was still a fat cat, and we were still smoking. 4.9% spending growth. That's good, right? Spend, spend, spend. Well, now you look at the February number. February cools off, and what's really, really funny about this number, where it's almost flat, is that gas station sales is included in this consumer spending number, and the gas station spending made up the lion's share of that 0.3% growth, and because of when the February numbers are collected, the Russian and Ukrainian war that has caused such price volatility in the oil prices, which made basically a gallon of gas, at least where I am in the US, go up from $3.30 to $4.30, right? It went up the 30%, wasn't even factored in. Now that's going to skew the spending, and it's not really going to paint the right picture of what's actually happening. Because if gas prices are going up, what do I have? Less discretionary money, because most people don't consider gas to be consumer discretionary, right? So are we in for a slowdown? So what does this all mean? All right, so Andy, this is great. Well, what's going to happen? Well, we know interest rates are going up, right? So what happens when interest rates go up? Got any economists here? Well, you know when interest rates go up, your fixed costs go up, right? So your big ticket items, the mortgages, the cars, gas is already up. That ain't helping, right? So all your fixed major costs that you do not consider discretionary are up. What does that mean? Everything else goes down, right? And then what? Demand goes down. That's what they're trying to do by raising the interest rates. What happens when the demand goes down? You let people go. Now, not all sectors are going to let people go, but in general, this is the way the world works. What's the first thing to go? Non-essentials, right? Who's following me so far? Who's following me so far? Give me a show of hands, right? I tried to do this one step at a time so that if you had absolutely no financial prowess, you can follow me, right? Who's following me, right? And one other thing, probably the most important thing for you guys, is when the stock market goes down, right? What happens? Employment market goes down, except they don't work in tandem. There's a delay, right? Stock goes down first, employment market goes down later. Then what happens? Stock market goes back up, right? Except what? The employment market might go back up or not. We could have a jobless recovery. Why would we have that? Well, I'm going to give you some things to think about, okay? But first, let's talk about the current events effect and the trailing effect. Okay, I made these words up because I just needed some way to convey what I was trying to tell you. I just showed you a bunch of bullets, right, and a bunch of graphs. Because of what I just showed you, something immediate's going to happen, all right, sooner than later. Then there's always things that happen as a result of other factors. I'm going to cover that next. So current events, first things first. Consumer discretionary is going to go down. This is not hard to see based on what I just showed you. And while there are certain other sectors that are going to go down, for illustrative purposes, let's talk about these guys. High-end apparel, right? Why do you think I buy $9 polo shirts? I love them. I just buy them on sale, and I got all these weird colors because I just buy whatever they're giving away, right? So right? These are not really high-end for me, but high-end clothing isn't necessary. Anything luxury goods, anything associated with entertainment, all this other stuff is not necessary for me, right? Leisure activities, hotels, air. Now, air is not considered consumer discretionary. It's factored into industrial, except that you'd be a fool not to think airlines are going to get smashed again, right? This is like a boxing match. Furniture, right? This is like a boxing match where you get knocked down in the 4th or 5th round, and then, you know, you get up and you're kind of woozy and you're sort of recovering, and by the 8th or 9th round, you're getting really tired and the big guy knocks you out. Okay, because I think you're going to get a double hit here. And I don't think it's coming tomorrow, but it's coming soon enough. And I need you to be thinking in these terms. Now, I only use this industry for illustrative purposes, but there are going to be other industries that are going to be affected, right? Anything related. And let me talk to you about that. And let me talk to you about that from what I consider to be a trailing effect. Now, autos, right? We need cars, but I don't have to buy a new car. I could, right? Right? Everybody wants the new car, but I didn't have the semiconductor chips, and I'm waiting for my new car, and I can't get, and I got to overpay, and they overpaid for my wife to give them her old car or whatever, right? Like, so you got to watch these certain sectors, but now there's other things that you need to look at. There's other things that you need to look at. So this is kind of fun. Now, I don't know if you think like this, but I spent a lot of time thinking like this. There's trailing effects. What do I mean? So we have these things in this world that should have occurred that didn't occur. They're way overdue adjustments. And I'm talking about positive adjustments that make everybody's life easier. Except that as the world moves, they move too slow. As employers move, they move too slow. As people want to change, they change too slowly. Okay? And then what happens is some major event occurs that accelerates the trailing effect and brings it to the forefront of something that otherwise would never have occurred had the event not taken place. Okay? And then what happens? I just can't go back. I can't unsee what I saw. I can't live without that anymore. Right? I didn't know I needed to cook my food faster until somebody gave me a microwave, even though I don't use mine. What's an example, not even for my points that I'm going to give you here in a minute, but what's a great example of this right now? How many of you, show of hands, are working from home right now? At least a few days a week, if not every day of the week? Do you think you're going back to 5 days a week, even though they're telling you we need everybody back in the office? Right? Any CEO that runs a company that does not actually require individuals to be present to make it happen. Like, okay, if I need to go see the doctor and I want to go to the hospital and get taken care of, the doctor better be there, right? The surgeon better be there. I get that. But most of us, 90% of the world, doesn't work in an environment like that. Okay, yeah, I understand somebody's got to pick the stuff off the warehouse shelf, but most of us don't. So I just don't think that that's going to happen. Now, that isn't even what I want to talk to you about, because I'm just trying to illustrate what I mean by a trailing effect. So something happens, and now the trailer change is the way we operate, right? Which causes what? Zoom stock to go up, right? You got to be thinking like this. All right, let me give you a couple of examples. I got this bike. I just bought it. It's like 8-10 feet away from me. This thing's a machine. It costs what my first car cost. It's so fast I was afraid I was going to fall off it when I rode it. Except I haven't bought a bike in 12 years. Okay? Now, last time I bought a bike, I went to the bike shop. And this nice man put me on an electronic device, hunched me over, put all these probes on me. It was like I was getting an MRI and an X-ray and a scan to get a bike. And he took all these measurements and he dialed it all up, and then like 3 months later I had a bike, my road bike, which I love, which I still have and still ride to this day. And I needed him to do that. And then I bought this new souped up bike. So I got a road bike, and now I got what's called a TT bike, a time trial bike. It's one of those like triathlon bikes that look real souped up and aerodynamic. So I go to, I find a new shop near my home. I really like this guy, Fred. I go in to work with Fred. I talk to him on the phone a couple times. I go in, I spend an hour or two with him. We go through the different bikes. We decide I'm gonna buy this one particular bike. I said, this is great, Fred, let's make it happen. He says, okay, well, this manufacturer doesn't sell through retailers. You gotta order it online. So I'm gonna pull you up online, and then we're gonna select all the stuff and boop, 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 or go home and do this and then come back and we'll order it, no problem. So I'd order it, ship it to this guy, because he needed to, you know, dilute this and put air into that and drain this and that or whatever, and a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So I paid him to put the bike together, basically. And how many of you would have, right, like, even if you go and buy a bike, right, you got to go into the store, you get on the bike or whatever, they sell you the bike. That's what retailers do, right? And so things are starting to change. They're cutting out the sales people, right? How many people love buying a new car? How many? Show of hands as I take a sip of this delicious tea. How many? I didn't ask you if you like new cars. I asked you about buying a new car. Right? When I buy a new car like once every 10 years, and I do it not just because I like to keep a depreciating asset, but the thought of having to go into a dealership and actually talk to a salesperson where I know I'm going to have to immediately get in my car, go home and take a shower because that's how I feel, and I'm a good negotiator, right? You follow me? Anybody buy a Tesla ever? I don't own a Tesla. What do you do? Doot, 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 doot. Where's the nearest Tesla little kiosk? Can I go and do a test drive, this and that? Right, you go, there's a nice person there who's not a salesperson but an employee to help give you the key, whatever. You get in the car, you drive it, you come back. They say, you want to buy a car? Sure, go to the computer, dial up, we'll send it to your whatever. Right? I got my Mercedes serviced a couple weeks ago on a Monday. On that Monday, I got it serviced on the Monday because I was having a productivity coaching session for 2 hours, going to take up my whole afternoon on a Monday. I said, this is great. Mercedes people, come to get my car. Nice lady came. They call her the valet. I handed her the key at 8:30. She goes, drives it to the dealership. They fix the car. They bring the car back, puts it in a driveway. I waved to her while I was in the middle of my live show. Never had to leave my Swiss ball. All day had my car taken care of. Right. Why? Because car dealerships have to do things like this because in 10 minutes from now, there's no longer going to be salespeople for me to go buy the car from there because they're not going to be there anymore because I'm going to go up online, I'm going to pull up the thing and I'm going to say, give me that model with a bunch of these things and put it, drive it to my driveway. Right? So now I understand there's rules and regulations and governmental control of this or that, but that stuff will get broken down. But this is what I mean by if you're going to think about, do I want to be a car salesman? You need to be thinking about this and what the cause and effects are. You follow me? These are the trailers. These are the kind of things that you have to think about based on everything that's happening around you. Who's following me? Who's following me, right? What's the expression? I see somebody in there, D-City, hate buying cars and phones, right? What's the quote? What's the quote? It's easier to buy a Tesla than it is to buy an iPhone, right? Kind of thing. That was her quote, right? Kind of thing. So just think about that. All right, so I'm helping you read the tea leaves. If you're in the consumer discretionary industry, I would be doing a number of things to make sure that I'm like the baddest ass on the planet in that sector. If I'm deciding, do I want to get into that sector, I might be thinking long and hard about whether I want to be doing this. And there's other sectors too. But I want to give you guys what I would do right now, no matter who you are. But these are not going to blow you away. I just want to remind you, this is good practice. And then I want to cap this off with a little story. All right, number one. I told you March 19th, 2020, I did a talk on the industries that are going to thrive because of the pandemic. And I gave you 36 that I thought would thrive. 34 or 5 of them still will. IT, healthcare, security, these kinds of things are in great shape. However, you just got double pay? You just went from 100,000 to 200,000? What do you think is going to happen if there's a pullback? And the semiconductor company you work for doesn't need to manufacture as many semiconductors to get them to the cars that aren't selling to whatever. No, everything is connected, all right? Everything is connected. So even if you're in a thriving market, you need to make sure that you are paying attention. And then the other thing that I would do is I would skill up. Now, a couple of weeks ago, maybe Stacy, if she's really dancing, can tell me the date I actually gave the talk. It was probably early in March, like maybe the 3rd or the 2nd or 3rd or 4th or whatever that Thursday was, where I gave you a limited edition live show and I talked to you about the skills I would build in the sequence I would build them and what the specific skills are, and these transcend roles and industries. And I gave you a whole booklet, like a 35-page assessment booklet, a methodology, my roadmap, what I would do, how to build my skill development plan, and so on. That limited edition is still up for a little longer. It probably another week or so. So if you're here with me live, make sure you grab that. Stacy can drop that link in the chat. And as well as actually, Stacy, can you, or Kara, can you drop the download of the leadership roadmap in there for them to take, the 35-page booklet that outlines all that stuff, the free giveaway, the thick free giveaway. And then I would check that out, and I would really pay close attention on skilling up. And then I would become indispensable. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you work for, okay? One of the things I would do by indispensable, here's what I mean. You are not indispensable if you're good at your job. And you are certainly not indispensable even if you are great at your job. Because if you are great at your job and I think I'm paying you twice what I could pay for somebody who's 90% as good as you, you're not indispensable, okay? But when you start to become so great at what you're doing and you become so versatile, meaning I can do the person's job that way and I can do the person's job that way, this way or that way. So I could do the job before me, the job after me, or a portion thereof. I'm integrated with the customers and really understand their business, and I'm talking to the vendors and the integrators or whatever. Like, you need to become the linchpin of what you're doing. You need to become you need to learn everybody's job on your team right now. I don't care how you do it. Spend the time. But start making yourself indispensable, because even if you got a great job and even if you're getting paid a tall dollar, it's coming. I'm telling you, it's eventually going to hit you, okay? Nothing goes up this fast and stays up and keeps going, right? Or you're going to halt or you're going to drop, okay? And if you're in one of the other more susceptible sectors, you need to really be on your toes. Okay, so I would do that, and then I would make sure I'm communicating with my manager. So I would talk to my boss's boss, or whoever, and I would express to them, look, I want to learn these other things. Hey, what constitutes success? What constitutes a stretch success, a stretch goal? How could I do that? What do I need to do? When can we have our checkpoints? Right? Can I cross train, up train, do this and that? Can I pick up some additional responsibilities? Is there anything you're doing that I could take off your hands? All that stuff. Now, if you are actually in my leadership coaching program, you have the Career Accelerator. I show you how to do this, and you have the sessions on, right, preparing for your promotion, planning your career development plan. You have the negotiating your raise, all that other stuff that you can do where you can foresee and plan all this in advance. Remember, it's chess, not checkers. Okay, so make sure you're communicating and pay attention to the trends. This is what I mean. And I'm gonna tell you something, and I want to cap this off with a quick story. When COVID hit, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, people are gonna be home, Zoom stock. Amazon, they're gonna be getting everything delivered. You don't just buy Amazon stock, you look at the Echoes. I go and I buy every cardboard box stock I can. Who makes paper? Who makes the stuff that Amazon needs? That's an Echo, right? You need to look beyond 2 feet in front of you. All right, and let me talk to you about Echoes. And I was thinking about how I wanted to end this talk, and I want to give you a story. Bear with me, it's maybe 5 minutes long, but I think it is a great cap on this, and it talks about Echoes, and it's part how-to, it's part motivational, and it's really, really about perspective. But I think it puts what I want you to do in a different light. Let's go back to March 19th, 2020. During that time, so 2 years ago, right now, middle of the month, about a week before I was going to give the talk on March 19th, which was a Thursday, I was sitting in that chair. Okay, I hope you can see it. I'm in a 4x3. And I was sitting in that chair. And unlike a lot of people, when I have ideas, I don't go to Google and I don't look stuff up. Just like, you know what? I mean, how many of you have turned your brain off completely because every friend, even your mom's phone number is in here and you don't remember it? Right? So what do you do when you want to do something? You go to Google instead of actually thinking. Let me tell you about what I was actually thinking about. I decided I want to give a talk. I decided I wanted to tell you what industries are going to thrive. So the first thing that I did was I went back there, I grabbed a cup of coffee, I went back there, I sat in a chair, and I went room by room in my head in my house. Okay? Looked at the computer, Zoom stock's going up. Went into the kitchen, right? more cooking stuff, right? I go around the house. I get to the basement. And in the basement is where my wife and I have a number of things, but among them is our workout equipment, the treadmill, her Peloton, my bike setup, the pull-ups, the bands, the whole 9 yards. I'm thinking, home equipment, right? Okay, then I'm thinking, all right, outside the health clubs. Health clubs are gonna get smashed because people can't go to the health club. Okay, people can't go to the health club. People won't drive to the health club. People won't park at the health club, and so on and so forth. Then I'm thinking, I used to belong to this amazing health club. The reason I belonged to this amazing health club that was in downtown Chicago, I didn't live in downtown Chicago, but I worked in downtown Chicago. I used to go to the health club near my house in the morning. I would work out, shower, and get in my car and spend like an hour and a half sitting in my car trying to get to work because the traffic is awful, even though I lived, say, 25 miles away from my office. So I decide I'm gonna join a health club downtown. Awesome health club. Every day I would get up and at 4:45 I'd hop in my car, I would drive down to the health club, I'd get there by 5:15 or 5:20, right when the door opened, I'd walk in, I'd work out, grab the smoothie, grab the coffee, get in my car, drive over to my office, I'm at my desk by 8 o'clock. I'd go home. But on the weekends, I would go down there and I would work out in the morning on Saturdays and Sundays, and I would take longer, I'd grab breakfast, I'd get in my car, and then I'd come home. Different route, I'd take a different street. On the street that I would go on led me to a feeder ramp to get to the expressway to get home. But in this route, there was two things that were absolutely certain. Once I was about to get on the feeder ramp, there's a stoplight, and two absolute truths. I got caught by the light every single time, that's one. And the second thing was, there's a homeless person who was there who would ask me for money. You know, they kind of would hold up the cardboard or they'd wear the cardboard box, right? I need food and that kind of stuff. So I always had cash in my pocket. So every time I would pull up to that light, I would roll down the window and I'd give them $5. $5 on Saturday, $5 on Sunday, all year long, except when Thanksgiving rolls around. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, what I would do is every week or a couple times a month, I would go to Target, I would stock up, I would buy all these gallon plastic Glad bags or whatever, and I would fill the shopping cart with everything that these homeless people that I could think of that they could use that I could fit in a bag. I mean, I would put baby powder and toothbrushes and toothpaste and soap and mittens and cash and whatever, and I would give 10 bags away on Saturday and 10 bags away on Sunday, and I did that for a month. Okay, so now, fast forward, it's 2020, but I don't belong to that health club anymore, and I don't drive down there because my wife and I in 2017 moved in this house. It doesn't make any sense. It's really far away. So I'm sitting in the chair, I'm running through my house mentally, and I'm thinking about all the stuff that's gonna happen, and I start to think about the health clubs. Then I start to think about the street. Then I start to think about the homeless people. And I think, who's gonna take care of them, right? So a couple days later, the weekend hits, I go into the Target, I fill up the 20 bags, I go down, I drive all the way downtown, and I drive around until I can get 20 of these away. And I think about the echo. Would you think about something like that ever? And I will tell you, we are all connected first. Everything you do, cause and effect. What you do has a cause, what you say has a cause, what you don't say has an effect. Your causes have an effect. It will ripple in places you will never visit, and you won't know. So the one thing that I really want you to do is I want you to think proactively about what you do and what effect it has on others. And I want you to think about if you do something, do that before. If you do something, think about what effect could it have and reflect on it. And those, we're all moving at a breakneck pace. If you would slow down and just think about everything that's around you. I came up with 32 of those 36 industries without turning a computer on. And I'm telling you, you've got to slow down. You've got to force yourself to stop and think about what's going on around you or how what you're doing affects everything around you. And you start thinking like that, and I guarantee you will start doing the right things that pay the dividends that you need to. And the last thing that I would say is, for the love of all that is holy, the next time you bitch or moan about something, I want you to think about this story and think about those homeless people and think about how good you got it. All right? So I hope you like that. If you're here with me live, we're going to the Q&A. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. But I really hope you enjoyed that and got a lot out of it. And more importantly, I hope it helps you think about how to think and what to think about. All right, I'll see you soon.